I don't like a career that I don't see progress in. You know, it kind of like almost made me a little lazy in a sense. This is not who I am. I started off as a dental assistant, went through hygiene school, and within this career, I was doing the same thing. I was like, where do I go from here?
There's so many people in your position that they would have gone so far into living that lifestyle because of what it paid them, and then realized too late, this isn't what I want to do anymore, but I'm financially locked in.
So I was personal training for a while, and I realized I was like, hey, I absolutely love this. When someone helps you, help them back. Sometimes you're going to be able to help that person more than they're able to help you. Thank you so much for having me, Mike. Super excited to be doing this with you, be here with you.
So before we get into all the fine details here, let's start by giving the audience about a 30-second spiel about who you are and where you came from.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Leah Krzywicki. I was born and raised in the Bay Area, went down to school in Santa Barbara, kind of came back. And then I started off as a dental assistant, went through hygiene school, and then eventually transferred to the health and fitness industry. And within that, became a personal and online trainer.
So why dentist?
Why dentist? That is a good question.
Well, how about this? Did you want to be a dentist per se, or you always thought, I'll be a hygienist first? How did that work out?
Yeah. So, going out of high school, you don't really know what you want to do. And I think the big thing for me is I knew I always wanted to help people. That was always something I had in the back of my mind. I toggled with nursing a little bit, and I realized I just did not like the hospital hours, and family is a really big thing for me. I had an aunt growing up. She was a nurse, and I just noticed it really compromised her time, like being able to be at home. And so my dad was a dentist, and I saw his dental hygienist that he had. They had good jobs, they had good families, and I was like, hey, this is something that I want to try out. I can get behind. I'm helping people. And so that's how it kind of came to be about.
Hey, so you're following in father in daddy's footsteps.
Yeah.
So did he give you a heads up about, hey, this is what the industry is, so you should be aware of it? Or you were looking more on the aspect of, I just want to help people and I'll figure it out from there?
Yeah, I never really felt that pressure from him at all to follow in his footsteps. I think he was, his approach to parenting was awesome, like letting me try and see as I go. And I think that was a big thing for me. It's like, I knew I wanted to do something. I just didn't know what that something was. So I'm like, okay, this is a stable career. Again, I'm helping people. I'm going to work, I'm producing every day. And, within that, I just... again, I was doing that for like 6 years, and I explored different avenues of it. So at first I was in general dentistry, working with my dad, doing some college classes, all of that. And then I was like, okay, I want to do something a little bit different now. So I, worked with a few oral surgeons, did that for a little bit. I really liked the surgery part of it. But I still felt like I was missing that little something, So then I ventured over into the pediatric side because, growing up, I was a nanny. I babysat a lot. I actually, my first job was a lifeguard and then a swim instructor, so like children had always been a huge part of my life. And I'm like, okay, if I'm able to do like my profession within pediatrics, like maybe, that'll be kind of what I'm looking for. And so I did that for a little while, and it just still was not, it's like I had to force myself to go to work, and like there was little parts that I liked about it, but like I started having back pain. I started looking at that clock, waiting till 5 p.m. every day, and I'm like, I feel like I'm almost like running away from my job. And I was like, dude, like this is not what I want to do.
Well, what was it? Was it the actual mundane part of the job? Was it the people you worked with? Was it, do I feel like I'm helping people? What was it that wasn't unfulfilling about that? Because on paper, that sounds like a great career to have.
Yeah.
It probably makes great money. If you did it for 30 years, you could be financially stable. Mm-hmm. It's a job that's not going to go away, unlike some other jobs that just don't exist anymore. So what was it about it that you said, this part of it is not what I expected?
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with that one. Like I was definitely, in it for the stability. Like I saw what type of life it could give me. But I think for me, it's like, I'm a very personal person, and I was inside someone's mouth all day. So I was essentially like talking to myself, I could get little like nods and grunts from people, but I just like, I was really missing that personal connection. It was the same thing every day. I loved challenging myself. You know, I was in school for years. School did not come easy to me. I freaking worked at that. So I was constantly challenging myself. And within this career, I was doing the same thing. I was like, okay, where do I go from here? You know, like I kind of just felt at a standstill, at a stop. I was like, I don't like a career that I don't see progress in. You know, it kind of like almost made me a little lazy in a sense. And I was like, this is not who I am.
Wow. So, I mean, there was a joke that was going to be made about looking down in the mouth, but if you're trying to build a relationship with somebody and literally you're working in their mouth, they can't talk to you.
Yeah.
So that building a relationship thing, I can tell how it didn't exist with the person in the chair. But how about the environment about dentistry, working with other hygienists, working with the dentist itself, seeing how a business is run? Did any of that come to you as this isn't, I never thought about that, or, you know, this wasn't the right environment for me with the vibe?
Yeah. I mean, you know, that's the thing. I worked in so many different dental offices. You know, stuff was done such different ways. You know, like starting off, I was working in my dad's dental office, like pretty small, private practice. And so, you know, the hygienist would have a room, the dentist would have a room, and that was like more private. But then again, when I was working at the pediatric dental hospital, there was about 8 chairs. We had 3 rooms of 8 chairs each. And then like a common like waiting room. And honestly, it was a lot of kids screaming and crying. And, you know, just like that maternal part of me, it was really hard to see that. It was really hard to see that. You know, we did have days where we'd take children and, you know, we had to put them under for certain procedures. That was so hard for me to see, you know, and having them wake up from that, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, it was very hard to see that. And, you know, I think that's something that kind of deterred me too. I was just like, this is not.
It wasn't something that they explained to you really in dental school that, hey, this is, okay, here's the procedure. Great. You know how to do that. Oh, here's the human side of it that you have to make sure you're comfortable with. Did that ever come up at all, or they sort of brushed over it?
You know, I think that's like the disconnection sometimes, you know, because just from what I've realized within my like schooling, and, you know, some people, they're really book smart and they're great at studying and that, but then they don't have that personal connection side to them, right? And it's very hard to get both. And so I realized that it's like, I'm someone, again, I like connecting, and I didn't really realize it until it was almost like I was in it too far. I was too far in it, you know?
Right.
And then I started realizing these things, and I was like, oh, whoa.
So when you hit that point, how far along in dentistry were you before you realized ain't happening now? I got to make a change.
Yeah. So, oh man, I literally started, I started in the dental industry actually out of high school, not even out of high school. I was a junior in high school. My dad actually needed a little bit of help in his office. I was like, hey, you know, this is kind of something that I'm thinking about doing. So I started, and, you know, anything when you start, it's cool. It's, you know, and I was finally like making a paycheck at 17 years old. I was like, okay, like this is something I could get down with. And then, you know, from there, it kind of just transformed into the assistant side. And, you know, going through school again, it was so hard for me, but I'm like, I've worked this hard. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep pushing and seeing if there's that light at the end of the tunnel. Problem is, I never really saw that light.
And how many years into it before you said, nope, that's it?
Yeah, so it was about 6 years.
6 years in that industry.
Yeah.
Wow, start to finish. And then, at least you're able to catch that. There's so many people in your position that they would have gone so far into living that lifestyle because of what it paid them, and then realized too late, this isn't what I want to do anymore, but I'm financially locked in. I have a rent to pay or a mortgage. I have a car payment. I have whatever credit card debt. I have student loans I got to pay back. I can't just walk away from this good paying job and then go start fresh somewhere else. So I guess I just got to roll with the punches and then deal with it.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, for some of the people in your industry that have been there longer than you, did you get a sense of that bitterness that I really don't want to be here and I'm not really proud of what I do, but I'm stuck here, so I'm just going to make it happen? You're not, and so you saw that a lot?
Absolutely. I think there's actually a statistic. It's kind of a sad statistic, but I think dentistry has one of the top suicide rates. And before going into this
Really,
field,
that industry?
yeah. Yeah, I was like, oh wow, so there was kind of a lot of things that I didn't know about the industry until I got into it, and I was like, oh, I see how this is a thing. It's so crazy because you're seeing all these patients during the day, but it does get lonely, you know,
Wow.
because it's like, yeah, again, you're not able to really connect. It's just like in and out, like, you maybe have 5 minutes before and after. And that was my favorite time of the whole, the whole time I was working because I actually got to talk to that person. But yeah, there's, don't get me wrong, like there's hygienists that love their job, but also like there's a girl specifically in my dad's office and she's so cool, but I could just like see that, she was kind of there just because she had kids, she had a family. And I just, I kind of saw that like passion for it gone away, kind of just
Jeez.
melted, disintegrated.
Well, you brought up something there that speaks a lot to what young women in their 20s are going through, and there's this pressure to live a certain life. Like going back to Santa Barbara. First of all, why Santa Barbara? Why not something up here in the Bay Area?
So I'm a very big beach person.
Got
And
it.
I just, I wanted to get away for a little bit, have that college experience. I didn't even go to the UC. I just went to the CC. I needed to get away for a little bit. I needed to spread my wings, branch out. And, oh man, I was like, yeah, I think I was like 18 years old. I was like, oh, the beach, that sounds great. Let's go.
Well, how did you now see this is the other part that people don't realize at that age. How do you support yourself with that? Is this all mom and dad, or you had to also get a part-time job?
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate. My dad did help my way through college. He was someone that always had me work for what I wanted, but he also like understand the importance of education. And so, when I went home, I would help him during the summer in his office doing little things. So it's like I was always working, but he also like had put aside that for me, which again was amazing, gave me plenty of opportunity.
Great.
Very thankful for
Well, I
that.
think that's an important thing to say is that although he helped you financially, it wasn't for free. You still had to go back home in the summer and you were working, you were doing all the filing, things that he'd have to pay someone else to do. So inevitably, he's probably getting a discount on that feature by paying your way through college.
Yeah.
Because some people might get the wrong impression, think, oh, she got lucky because mom and dad paid her way through. And well, they did help you out financially. You had to pay that back somehow.
100%.
So
And,
it's,
I think that's like something that I was instilled with. It's like when someone helps you, help them back. Like we're very, I'm so fortunate. I have two brothers, one older brother, one younger brother, and my dad. We're all very close and we like understand the importance of helping people. And like sometimes you're going to be able to help that person more than they're able to help you. And it's not always 50-50. Like sometimes you're going to go through those hard times and you're going to have to pick up that slack. And so I am like so thankful for just having that instilled in me at a young age.
well, yes, as you get older, you'll start seeing more and more that there are people who will take and take and take, and you just got to do what you got to do. Eventually, it comes back to what do you want to call it, karma or something, but it does come back to it. I mean, today's day and age, it seems like it's more the opposite. It seems more that everybody's taking more, whether it's this work from home thing or whether it's just a new generation coming up, and my sister's generation, who's Gen X, she was like, you guys didn't have it the way that we had it. Her, our parents who are the baby boomers said, it was different for us in our day. And I guess we're going to say the same thing as millennials. It's different for Generation Z,
Oh,
which technically, are
100%.
you Generation Z?
Uh, you know, so I kind of don't relate to them super well. Like I relate to millennials more, but I'm like right in between there. So
That's me. Like, I'm an early millennial,
yeah,
82, 83. So I
yeah,
kind of relate a little more to Gen X, even though I'm technically a millennial on paper. So I'm the same thing as you. I'm in this weird zone of who do I relate to more?
a hundred
So
percent.
we're more of like that hybrid between both, where we don't really fit with either one, but we're categorized as one or the other.
Yeah.
But I see the difference between my age, my generation of millennials versus some of the later ones. Like, wow, you guys, a little different world for you. And we're only separated by maybe 10 years. And look at
Yeah.
the difference with all that.
Yeah, and it's like, I see the same thing with millennials and the generation now. It's so crazy. I think instant gratification is a huge one.
Yeah.
It's like today's day and age, we are so used to stuff coming at us, especially with the media. It's like so fast paced.
Yeah.
And, when people don't know how to be patient, like it makes them aggressive and angry and they're like, hey, like why isn't this happening? And I really noticed that like going into the fitness industry, everyone wants fast results like that, And it's like, hey, that's not how it happens.
It's just so, man, when I was in college, we had MySpace. Do you even know what that is?
I do. I was never on it,
We had MySpace and we had flip phones. So thinking about my college days now, if I had an iPhone and I was on social media, I don't even know how we would deal with it back then. We were so used to not dealing with it, and you still had to work for what you had to get. And there was no, this person in another state or in another country has this lifestyle that I have to live up to. That wasn't a thing as much as it is now. So in a way, I kind of feel for the younger people. But this kind of ties back to something I wanted to ask you earlier, which was, as you were going to school, you were going to college, what was your mindset on how your life is supposed to go? And I ask that because for our generation, my part of the millennials, being the hybrids that we were, there was this mix of, for women specifically, well, for guys, I can tell you from my end of it, it was when you graduate college, you were just going to get that big salary job and you were going to be set, because not a lot of people had degrees back then, early 2000s. And then you'd get married and you have kids and you would just be a step ahead of the generation above you.
Yeah.
But nowadays, or for women specifically, did you feel that pressure to have to go out and find someone and get married right away and start having kids? Or are you like, no, I want to focus on my career because I see a different picture than maybe my mother or my cousins related to me?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely that's definitely something that we ponder on a lot, that I have pondered on so much. And, I just relate it back to my family. Like my dad, he decided to have kids a little bit later on in his life. And the life that he was able to give us was amazing, and I'm so thankful for that. And I saw the steps that he took for that, and I was like, okay, again, this idea of instant gratification, it doesn't happen super fast, and everyone's timeline is different. And I think that's something that I had to learn. It's like we had this idea, white picket fence, get married at a young age, have kids, all of that, but it's like I knew the life that I wanted was just going to take a little bit longer. And just through my young life and stuff, my dating has always been hard for me because I have insanely high expectations. It's like I know what I want. I grew up with a great family. And so I know building that relationship and building that trust is going to take time. So, I just looked at it from a realistic perspective, and I was like, the timeline that I thought I had.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of women are figuring that answer right now because you have such high expectations, which is not a bad thing. You're supposed to be very picky.
Yeah.
You find out the pool of guys that are there is about that big.
Oh, and it diminishes every day.
It diminishes. And you kind of sympathize with you because you put yourself in a situation, not you specifically, but you work so hard, you get your education, you get your degree, you get your job, you get a good paying job. Mm-hmm. You don't want to, quote unquote, settle for something less.
Yeah.
You don't want to take someone who has half your salary or doesn't have as much ambition or as much education. There's this mental block, and I totally get it. Mm-hmm. But then you find out the people who do have all that and more, now you're fighting with all the other women for that same person's attention.
Yeah.
And the reality is for men, it takes us a long time to establish ourselves. We grew up thinking at 25 we were supposed to know it all.
Yeah.
And even biologically, our brains weren't even fully developed to probably about 26, 27. And I can tell you that age, I had no idea what I wanted, where I wanted to go. I just assumed I'd have that degree and it was all going to be hunky-dory, and it didn't turn out that way.
It's not as we planned.
No, it's not until you get, for me specifically, until you get to your early to mid-30s. Then things start to fall into place between your fitness, your education, your finances, where you want in life, the experiences that you had. So for most guys, we don't get to that point until we're almost 40. Mm-hmm. And at that point, if we've done all the right steps, now we're in a position where, okay, now I might be thinking about getting married. Now I might be thinking about having kids because I've established my career, my finances. And it sounds like that's something that your dad did. He 100%. Waited till around that age too, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. And, again, it's now that I'm 26 for reference, and it's now in the dating game, I'm finally starting to see that. And I'm like, okay, maybe this actually is a good time to start dating again, because for a while I just gave up because I knew what I wanted. I was very set in my expectations, and, I just was not really finding what I knew I wanted. And, there's a big thing in today's age, dating apps, they're crazy. It's it makes people not work through their complications and stuff that arises in relationship, which makes you strong in a relationship. It's what I was finding is when a problem occurred, they'd get on the app, go find another girl,
Well, that whole online dating thing is just, it's natural. You end up being very superficial.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I'll just answer for you. When you're on whatever those apps are, Tinder or something, you end up just swiping through it and you only see the pictures. So you have to make a decision based on that. You don't know who this guy really is, what he's accomplished.
Exactly.
So if he takes a horrible picture, well, sucks to be you, dude. But if you meet that same guy at your local Safeway, passing by at the spaghetti aisle, and now, oh, you start talking to him. Oh wait, that's the same guy with that weird photo.
Exactly.
Wow, I didn't even give him a chance because I just had to swipe through that thing. That's the danger part about them apps. But in today's day and age, maybe that's the way to go. I was old school. You had to go out and talk to people. Otherwise, that's how you learned. You had to break through your mental
Yep.
blockade of I'm scared of what they're gonna say. Well, guess what? If you screw up, you're never gonna see them again. So keep
Exactly.
working at it. But again, I'm 40. This, all that stuff took time to happen. You weren't going to know that at 26.
100%.
You're still finding your own way.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, it's a challenge that I think some of your female clients in the similar age are probably going through because that's a big thing nowadays. People are starting to realize, yeah, it takes a long time for a guy to get his act together. So if you keep looking for guys your own age, it's, well, you kind of reap what you sow at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, no, like once I started dating older, I was like, oh wow, this is definitely like working a lot better. And again, like kind of back to what you were saying is like everyone's so rushed on, getting married, having kids, all that. But I'm like, again, like you said, like it takes a while to get established. And it's like, if you try all of that stuff before you're established, like you run into other problems. Like I understand you can live and grow with that person, but if that person's not secure within themselves, then it ends up like projecting onto you. And like that is a big thing that I have dealt with in my dating life, the person like not being secure and then it coming off to you and then it like messing with you internally and you're like, wait, this isn't even me. This is coming from you. So it's definitely a crazy game. And it's like every relationship you have, you learn a lot from it.
And we have to get over this whole idea that we're going to be married for 50 years and have a kid in the white picket fence. That was my grandparents' dream after World War II.
Yeah.
It made sense. We just lost how many millions of people in the war. You have to repopulate the population. We haven't had people forget that to relate this, we haven't had a major war in a long time. So we're not dying like we did back in the day. So the idea that we have to keep having these families, that doesn't exist as much anymore.
Yeah.
So we're all trying to figure out this new way of having relationships. What does marriage look like today? Because it's not the same thing as it was back in the day. Do you want to have kids? Do you say, you know what? I'm very comfortable in my career. And if I can live a long, healthy life, I don't need children. My aunt's 80 some odd, almost 90 years old. Never married, never had kids, and she's still kicking in because it forced her to say, I need to take care of myself and not depend on somebody else or depend on raising kids and depend on grandkids. I have to do this on my own. And she was totally comfortable with that. That's a trend. And again, she grew up in the 60s. So the fact that she's
like entrepreneur for that.
Exactly.
Time.
So the fact that she has that mindset and you can see the progression in her at her age now and how she's still, everything is still there.
Yeah.
It tells you something that maybe that's going to be the future for a lot of women. They may not want to hear that, but maybe it's focusing on taking care of yourself rather than having to be dependent on having children.
Yeah.
The decision they all have to make. And I hope that we do a better job of teaching some of the young girls in high school that, hey, you can do whatever you want, but just think about the bigger picture so you don't end up 45 or 50 and realize, oh crap, I was supposed to do that early and I didn't. And then you're sort of like, well, no one told me that.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I think for me, definitely, I love family. That is a huge part of my life. I'm so fortunate. My dad, he's one of, he's one of six. So I have a very big extended family and we had a lake house growing up. And so we'd always, go there. And I just, again, from a young age, I understood the quality of family and how that's something that truly like fills my heart with joy. I absolutely love it. Like I told you, I was a nanny. Again, I just have always had that love. And I know like one thing that I'm absolutely looking forward to is having a family of my own, being able to build that. So that's definitely something that I think about and that I genuinely like want within my heart.
That's awesome that you want that, and you're right. It's difficult to find the right person now, and then you may then you may find yourself in a position. I don't know if you thought about it. Is where does that balance come in terms of spending time with the family and then career? That's another one that a lot of people have a hard time with. It's
Yeah.
geez, because I need to spend this much time on my career, but then what about the kids? They're growing up without me. You ever
Yeah.
think about how you balance that, or how you would balance that?
So absolutely. I mean, I think that's also a thing that I started within this new career is, so I was personal training for a while and I realized I was like, hey, I absolutely love this. And I had an opportunity open up to me, online fitness coaching. And at the time, I didn't even know what that meant. I was so like unaware of it. And a good friend of mine, he actually like reached out and he built his business up during COVID and just doing like awesome things. And he's like, hey, have you ever thought about this? And I was like, I'm an in-person person. Like, I like that connection. And he just kind of showed me what it was about. And I realized like how many people I could touch and how flexible you could be within that. Because, when I get to the point where I want to be, I could technically be working from home and having my family being able to take care of those kids as well.
Well, I see you thought about that there. That's pretty good.
Absolutely.
I want to get into the fitness thing, but before we get into that, I want to talk about the influence that you've had with your family growing up. So you've spoken a lot about your dad, and you've seen what he did to become what he's doing, and how his job reflected upon you, and how you view it.
Yeah.
How about the rest of your family? Your mother, your brothers? How was that growing up?
Yeah. So my brother's growing up. So I have an older brother. He's a year and a half older than me. We were basically like twins growing up, like did everything together. He beat on me, all of that good stuff. And then my younger brother, he's 4 years younger. I was almost like a mom to him growing up. So my mom growing up, she was around for a good part of my life. And then towards, it was about 8th grade, like my mom and my dad started kind of having difficulties. So she was living in Florida at the time. And, my dad was here trying to like raise a family, do all that. My mom, like, again, she was an amazing mother. She ended up homeschooling us like, earlier years, but just, came to a point where my mom and dad didn't quite see eye to eye. So she was kind of off doing her thing and I had to step in to that mother role. And so it's like I really had to be that mom to my little brother. Like, again, my dad was awesome, but he was, trying to run a business, trying to freaking figure everything else out. So it was kind of on me to, raise my younger brother. And again, like my mom, actually like kind of a sad story. So growing up, like I was pretty close to her, but like, I was always like just a little bit closer to my dad. Like she's someone that she always pushed me. And a lot of people don't believe this, but when I was a young kid, I was super shy. I was super, super shy. And she was like this very like outgoing, loud, outspoken person. And, when I was little, that used to annoy me. And then, so my senior year of high school, like a little bit before I graduated, super unexpected, she passed away. I remember my dad and my brothers, we were all on a ski trip. She didn't go with us. So at the time she had come home, like she'd come home for family holidays and stuff. And like stuff was actually like finally going good with my mom and dad. And like I was starting to have hope. And so she was at home. We all went on a ski trip. And we just hadn't heard from her in a few days. And we were like, that's so weird. Like we're finally like doing well, like what's going on? And we came home and we saw that she had passed away.
Wow. I mean, natural.
Yeah. Natural causes, yeah. Wow. So she did have a history of high blood pressure, and that's what it was due to. But again, like it was very, very unexpected. Like hit us like a train. I remember in that moment, like I kind of had a panic attack. Like I didn't even know what to say. Like I was at a loss for words. My heart started racing. I was like, did this really happen? And then I honestly went into a numbness. There was 2 years of my life where I didn't remember. I was going through the motions, just really trying to get up and just do life. And, my mom was always someone that she used to tell me to like move my body. elevate my mood. And again, when I was young, like I used to just roll my eyes at it,
Yeah.
and I kind of had that voice in the back of my head, and I started weight training. I started lifting. I actually got a trainer at the time. And that was the one time that I kind of was able to come back into my body and like feel like myself, even if it was just for a little bit. Like that was the one time that like it gave me hope. Like I was so lost and depressed and like just didn't really know what was going on. It's like when you go through something that tragic, like your life stops. But again, my mom was someone like she was like very ambitious, very outgoing, and I knew that she wouldn't want me to stop my life just because this happened. And so for those like few years, like the gym literally became my sanctuary. It was the one place that I could just forget about it for a little while, like kind of lift that pain off from, I get emotional talking about this because, wow.
I get it. It's not easy. I mean, my father passed away 13 years ago. I mean, maybe I handled it in a different way because we're guys. So it was more like, I don't blame him. You can't blame someone for that. But, the way he took care of himself at the end, there was a part of me where you say, okay, if you want to live, you have to take some accountability and responsibility. And if you don't do it, I'm not saying you reap what you sow, but it's how can I have that sympathy for you if you chose to go down the path that he was going down? And
100%.
so there's a little bit of an anger thing there too. And also my mom, because of that, my mom had to pick up the slack and basically care for him like, a personal caregiver, pick him up, take him here. And it's to see my mom go through that. There's a little bit of that anger that comes back to why would you put her through that? That's just, if it was, you tried everything and you couldn't, that's one thing. But when you weren't even trying, to me, it was like, so that's sort of and people ask me all the time, how come you weren't showing emotion at your dad's funeral? Why would you I just, bigger picture there that I saw growing up. Then I'm like, it's, obviously I still wish he was here and he definitely taught me a lot, but he did a different way to handle it. But
100%.
It doesn't matter what it is. It's still how you process it. And to see you could have let that get you down. And instead you took something that she's told you your whole life and flipped it and said, okay, she's been telling me this her whole life. And while she's not with me anymore physically, how can I continue that on? And maybe that was the kick to get you into this new career that you're now in fitness. Yeah. So it's funny how the world works sometimes, even though you don't plan for it to work out that way.
Oh, it's crazy. It's like there's so many little things from my childhood that have like put these pieces together that you don't even start realizing until you get a little bit older and you're like, oh my gosh, like this was a sign. Like, for example, growing up, I was a very active little kid. I did not like being inside. Like, for example, my family tried to get me to play piano. Oh no, it just did not happen. I was outside running around in the park, had a soccer ball, had a baseball, basketball, anything under the sun, playing tag. So it's like I was always like a very like moving, like, just like very active child. And, through that, like I had sports all throughout high school. I swam, I cheerled, I played soccer, I played water polo, like pretty much every sport under the sun. And so I think it's kind of funny to think about now that I'm like in the fitness industry. It's just something that has aligned with my whole life, essentially. Like, it's so insane to think about. It's like, you have all these little hints in your life. It's just sometimes a little bit easy to ignore them, It's because it's like I was on a path that I thought I had to be on, and talking about the pressures and everything. And I understood at the time that I was just not happy. And I was like, okay, I need something to change. Life is more than just chasing the check, chasing the money. It's like you have to do something that fulfills your heart. And why I was going through this, like I talked to a lot of my mentors. Like one person that I really respect, he's my chiropractor, and he told me he was in architecture school till like I think he was 30 something years old. He went through a back injury, and within that injury found out he wanted to be a chiropractor. Now he's super successful today. And I'm like, why do more people not talk about this? Like, not talk about not knowing what you want to do when you're younger.
this ties into the financial part of it. And we spoke a little bit about this off camera, but
Yeah.
if we get too, how's the best way to put it? If we get too bogged down into living a specific lifestyle that we had to pay for, and for a lot of us, that comes right after college. You get that degree, you think I'm going to get this great job, and whenever that job is, I'm good. And then I'm going to start buying all the toys, the car, the jewelry, the clothes. You rack up the credit card debt, then the student loans come due. And then you start realizing, wow, this is a lot that I have to pay for. I am really dependent on this job here because of the paycheck. And now that I'm some people love their jobs, and more power to them.
Yeah.
I should say they love their jobs to the point where it fulfills many boxes in their life, which is not normal. Most people can't get all that fulfillment from their one job. We like to think that we're supposed to. This is a lot of what Google employees think, that they're no offense to any Google employee, but I'm supposed to have it all. I'm supposed to have a great salary with free food, bean bags, free dry cleaning, and all my best friends are at work, and it's going to be this greatest thing in the world. And for some people, they might get all that. Most of us don't get everything. So you're going to have to find some other way to get what's missing in your job, because realize you're there to do a job. They pay you to do a specific task. And as long as you do that, you get the money. But if there's other things that you're missing in your life, you got to find some other outlet for that. But if you get too bogged down and I have to work so many hours because I have to pay for things that I have committed myself to, and then that's where that bitterness comes in. That story you talked about earlier about some hygienists that you've worked with in the past that just didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
But they had kids and they're like, well, I got kids now, so what am I going to do?
Exactly.
It really does speak to how you have to. It could be something like that chiropractor friend of yours. It was just I threw my back out, and that was the one thing that I needed to say. This isn't for me anymore. It wasn't necessarily the money. It was I want to do something else where I can help people. We usually get that epiphany at some point, so I'm excited to see that you got that epiphany there.
Yeah.
So how did it get from? So you realized you wanted to get into fitness, but now how did that transition work to get to what you're doing now? What were the steps you took to get there?
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, literally flashback to a year ago, actually August, August last year.
Wow.
I was like, I know, very, very new to it. But yeah, August last year, I just realized I was like, okay, something freaking needs to change. This is not what I want to do. I have been in this industry for 6 years. And so I took a step back and I asked myself the question, what are things that I genuinely care about? What are things that I'm passionate about? What are things that have changed my life? And honestly, clear as day, fitness, working out, moving my body. And so what I did is I was like, okay, I looked into getting a personal training certification. I didn't know if it's what I wanted to do, but I'm like, at least this is a step forward. So I went to a few of my, I had a coach at Body Mechanics, and, I actually talked to my now boss, Paul, and I was just like, hey, like, how did you do this? Like, what's up with this industry? They told me what certifications to get. Got that done in the bag. Got offered a job at the old gym that I used to coach at. And so within that, I started personal training, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I love this. This is awesome. Growing up, I was a swim instructor. And so that kind of like translated over into that coaching side. It's like I already knew how to coach people. I just, it was a little bit different. Like I wasn't coaching children anymore.
Yeah.
And it kind of made me like super thankful for the schooling that I had. It's like I've had anatomy, I've had physiology, I've had chemistry, I've, had to go through all those science classes. So being able to implement that into my training was honestly awesome. And it started like all coming together for me.
Wow. So this sounds exciting. So before we get into this, there's something I want to ask you that I know some listeners are going to find out, okay, this sounds great. I want to change my career, do something else.
Yeah.
But then comes the reality of how things are getting done behind the scenes. So for you, it would be financially. You were making, I'm not going to ask you how much specifically, but you were making what we call good money as a hygienist.
Yeah.
How do you go from that to essentially not making really anything? Because you have to start out from the bottom to build this whole personal training industry. So you go from up here on your salary to down here.
Yeah.
How did you prepare yourself for that? Did you have to sell cars? Did you have to move in with dad again? Did you have to give roommates? What did you do to get there?
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of just bit the bullet, and I was like, okay, like I have to live at home. And that's what I decided to do. I just realized it's like, there's got to be a give and a take, right? And it's like, I knew in my heart that I just did not want to do the hygiene anymore. I just freaking knew it. And I was like, okay, you can't put a price tag on happiness. If this is what it takes to get here, I'm going to freaking do it. It's like, I'm so thankful. Like, my family is freaking awesome. And so, yeah, like right now I am living at home, but, and, you know, it's like allowed me to have that step to be like, hey, you know, this is like what I want to do, and have that flexibility and have that freedom. And, you know, it's not always easy. It's like, I'm 26, I'm living at home. Like, that doesn't always look great behind the scenes, but it's like, if it's going to get me to where I want to be, let me freaking do it, you know?
Yeah, here we say 26 is not normal. Actually, that's more normal now than it used to be.
Oh, yeah.
It used to be if you were home past 23, what's the matter with you? Now, if you're home, you know, after 30, it's like that, and that's kind of the way. I mean, especially around here with the way that everything costs in the Bay Area.
Insane.
Did you make any specific? Did you have to sell like a nice car that you had? Did you have to talk to your loan officer or the loan program about your student loans and say, hey, I need some extra time? Is there anything tangible there that you can explain to people that you had to bite the bullet on, not just living at home, but other things that you said I'm going to have to do?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was fortunate. Like, I'm very, you know, smart with my finances. So I didn't really have that debt. It's like, I still lived pretty frugally because, you know, I was fresh out of college.
Great.
You know, going through all that stuff. So it's like, I was used to, you know, living pretty frugally and like not spending my money. And like my dad, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful for him. It's like, you know, he grew up having a good job, but he also like taught the importance of saving your money. And, you know, the fact that I was able to do that allowed me to do this. So again, it's like, once you get that money coming in, I know it's so easy to spend it away, but it's like, I, you know, realized I was like, okay, let me think about my future.
Well, that's good that you had that upbringing. Unfortunately, a lot of people never had that upbringing with parents who told them how to manage money.
Yeah.
And they might be in a position now where they're like, I hear what she's doing, and I've always wanted to do fill in the blank career, but do I have to sell the car? Like, maybe you do have to sell that brand new BMW you got and go buy a used 2005 Honda Civic that you can pay for cash because it's going to get you from point A to point B.
Exactly.
It doesn't look sexy, but
Yeah.
who cares at that point? You're starting a new career. Maybe that means you talk to your loan officers about renegotiating your student debt. Maybe that means you hate to do this, but maybe bankruptcy is an issue for if you've really gotten yourself in a bad position.
Yeah.
There are steps that you can take where you don't have to get locked down to that one job that you had that was a lot of money, but because you know you want to start something different. So I just think it's good for an audience member to hear that it's not just as simple as I just started something brand new. Like,
Oh, heck no.
no, there's a lot of steps that I had to take. And
Yeah.
part of that was saying I have to live at home again
Yeah.
for right now.
Yeah. And, you know, like, that's the thing. Like, sometimes change does look messy. It's not always like point A to point B. It's point A to C to around the town to Z, you know?
Yeah.
And again, that's life, you know? It's like, sometimes it is too about taking messy action and like understanding that it's not going to be perfect, but the fact that you're taking that action, that's going to progress you forward.
That is absolutely true. Now, so once you got into this mindset, now I'm going to be a personal trainer. Talk about your first experiences as you weren't online at first, right? You were physically in the gym teaching people.
Correct.
What did you learn with that?
Yeah. So, oh man, it was definitely like a very big change from the dental industry to the fitness industry. But so actually I go back to my first client. Definitely did not look like what I thought I was going to be doing. He was in his 80s. I think he was like 83 or something. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this guy? You know, like, it was literally my first client ever. I was scared. I was nervous. And, you know, that's when I learned the power of connection. And I just talked to him and I was like, hey, like, why are you here? And the biggest thing for him was like, he's like, yeah, I'm afraid of falling. And so what I did with him is I literally like recreated a fall with him. You know, like I got a bench and I was like, okay, like, if you were to fall, this is how you'd fall. And then, you know, I realized that a lot of his lower body was super weak. And I was like, okay, like, let's work on your lower body. So if you fall, you're going to be able to get up on your own 2 feet. And, you know, it was being very simplistic, but also getting him to where he wanted to be. And again, I never thought in a million years I'd be training an 83-year-old guy, you know, but it's like, I saw how I was able to give him that confidence to be safe by himself, you know?
It's funny. I mean, you're not the only person who sat in that chair and said the same exact thing. Is that most people, well, the young people tend to be aesthetics. I need to have 18-inch guns. I need to have a six pack, whatever. But you get
Oh
into
yeah.
the 60s and 70s, it's, no, I just want to make sure that I can pick myself up if I fall. I want to be able to
Mm-hmm.
carry my grandchild up, down. I want to be able to put my suitcase in the overhead bin in the airplane. Like that's
Exactly.
important to me, not how big my arms are.
Yeah.
And so you're right. You figure that out, and as you learn your clientele, you can understand this is what you really want. So how do we
Mm-hmm.
get you to this specific goal? I'm not trying to give you, Arnold Schwarzenegger's workout plan because that's not what you want.
Yeah.
You just want to function in life. Okay, that makes sense. So after that experience, what did that teach you about how you wanted to proceed going forward in the industry?
Yeah. So, again, where I was working, it was a small, like, cooperative industry, and they focused a lot on just mechanics of the body, functional foundational movements. And again, like, I loved it at first, but it's like, again, with the fitness industry, you have to be hungry and you have to like go off of what you want. It was very hard to start off there. So I was babysitting, I was still in the dental office, I was taking random side jobs to make up for what I wasn't making. And so I was running myself ragged. And I remember specifically one day, my boss took me to lunch because he could just tell something was wrong. I broke down crying to him. I literally broke down because I was so stressed. I was so tired. All of my free time was going into my other jobs. I didn't have time for me. And I was like, I literally preach taking care of yourself. I'm a fitness trainer and I'm freaking breaking down. Like, this is just not sustainable. And so I almost thought at a point, I was like, I might have to go back to the dental field, just to be stable a little bit. And I was very fortunate in the fact that my boss now, he is always someone that had like checked up on me, reached out. Little background. So funny how I know him. We were literally chemistry partners in college, out of all things, super random. Before I even knew I wanted to be a fitness trainer. And so, long story short, we went to the gym one day, and he was like, "Hey, like, how's that personal training gig you got going on?" And I'm like, "Dude, like, I love it, but I'm freaking stretching myself so thin. Like, I just don't know if this is what I can be doing." And, he told me, he's like, "Have you ever thought about online training?" And I was like, "What's online training?" And, he kind of just gave me what that was. And within that, like, I realized that I could touch and help so many more people than just in-person training. And again, like it was a completely new concept to me, but like I understood the power of it. It's like, personal training, if you have a full schedule, you can teach 8 people a day, but that's taxing, time after time after time, 8 hours of just training. Like, it wasn't really like a sustainable part. And so with online training, again, it's like I realized that I could free up my time a little bit more and use it more productively.
So when you made this decision that online training is the way to go, how
Yeah.
did you proceed? That's like, okay, online training, where do I go? Do I start an app? Do I find somebody? Where did you go from that point?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, my boss now, Coach Paul, actually, he was like, "Hey, I'm actually looking for assistant coaches." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm in the position that, I'm looking at my options." And so he presented the opportunity to me. And so what we do is he has everything set up through an app, right? So all of your clients go through an app. They have nutrition, macros all broken down for the day. They have workouts, and within that, we have a Facebook community, and we have weekly calls with our clients. And so that's the personal, interaction that you get with them. And the community is awesome. It's like I was able to see that, and like clients and coaches just uplifting each other and like doing something all together. And I didn't realize that you could have that within the online coaching. Like, that's the disconnect that I didn't see. And once I was able to see that, I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is a powerful thing.
So in your industry now, I'm guessing you're specializing in female clients around your age group. Is that what you want to focus on?
Yeah.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you're hearing from that specific clientele about what they're looking for, what the problems are, body image issues, dieting. What are some of the biggest things that you're hearing from them about getting into shape?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, a lot of my clients are like, hey, during COVID was just, it just happened. They're like, during COVID, I literally was home all the time. I was snacking all the time. I gained weight. A lot of them are just like, I have such a sedentary job that, I'm not able to be as active as I once was. And I think a big thing too is like, once you start getting into like your mid, later end of your 20s, your hormones change, your metabolism changes, and, you're not going to be able to eat what you were eating when you were, 17 years old. And I think that is a big change for people. And they're like, whoa, I'm gaining weight. And I'm like, have you looked at your nutrition? That's like one of the first things I ask my clients, and they're all like, yeah, we have a little excess weight. We want to lose about, 10 to 15 pounds from our bellies. That's where a lot of women hold their weight. And, it's just, I think the lack of education that they have, that they think that they can just do what they did when they were 17. And it's like, no, like our bodies constantly change. And that just the lack of education that's not there.
Or not there, exactly.
Yeah.
So they're complaining to you about, they want to live the lifestyle that they did when they were 20, 21.
Yeah.
But the body is not going with the flow anymore. Mm-hmm. So how do you start breaking that down? Do you work with their diet first? Do you say, let's see what you can do in terms of squats or kettlebell swings? Mm-hmm. How do you assess them in the very beginning? And how do you do that online?
Yeah. So, I mean, it definitely is a little bit different. A lot of what it is it's through calls. So the first thing that I'll ask them is I'll just be like, what are your daily routines like? What is your daily routine like? And I'll have them break down a day of eating. If they work out, what their job is, all of these different factors go into health, and like, that's the thing. It's like, everyone's trying to find a quick fix. They think it's a one size fits all, and it's totally not. What's going to help Jessica isn't going to help Mary. It's very different. And I think, that's the problem with it is like, oh, here it is. Let's go. Let's do this. Oh, that doesn't work. They fall off. They get really sad about it.
Am I wrong if I say when it comes to dieting that a lot of the clients that we just talked about here are going to go to, well, I'll just eat less. I'll eat a salad with some Italian dressing, maybe a little bit of chicken breast, and then I'll be good to go, right? The weight will just fall off. Is that something that sounds very familiar?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, a big reason why I work with females my age is because most likely I've been through it. Mm-hmm. Before like getting the education that I have now, I was severely under eating. I was maybe eating one meal a day because it's like I was never a super skinny person, So it's like I was always trying to like walk or, do crazy amounts of cardio and eat as little as possible because I'm like, okay, like this is how I'm going to lose weight. And it was not sustainable. And it's like, I see that. And when you understand the role that nutrition has within your fitness and properly fueling your body, like, that's the problem with today's day and age. You hear about all these crazy fit teas, keto diets, like everything under the sun. And it's like, they may work for 2-3 weeks, a little bit of time. But then when people go back to their normal life, they're not able to sustain it. And I think that is the biggest disconnect. So what I teach my clients is I'm like, hey, it's not about being perfect. It's about making small changes that are sustainable. And again, like I talked about keto, I have beef with keto, okay?
No pun intended.
That, I was trying to be funny over here. Because it's like, how can you cut out a whole food group the rest of your life? You can't. Me, I freaking love carbs, and they definitely play an important role within our health, within, well,
let me ask you this, because this is something I think, I don't know personally, but let me get the vibe from you.
Yeah.
When you are reassessing your diet and your exercise routine, is it fair to say that in your own mind or your client's mind, are they comparing themselves to somebody who has a completely different body type? Mm-hmm. For example, let's say, you look like Kate Moss, but you want to look like Kim Kardashian. Oh, what did she, or vice versa. I
Yeah.
want to look like Kate Moss now, but I have more of the Kim Kardashian body. So simply I'll just stop eating and it'll fall away and I'll look like that. Is
Yeah.
there a misconception there as to what you're really focusing on? Like you want to go from this person to that person who has a completely different bone structure,
Yeah.
body structure, age, whatever it is. Have you been to that yourself, and how do you relate that to the clients?
Yeah. So I mean, again, that's a big thing with social media is like they'll just see a random person and be like, hey, I want to look like that. And, that person will be 5'2", 110 pounds. Whereas a client that I'm working with is like 5'9" and definitely, a little above that. And it's like, okay, find someone that looks similar to you and, you know, like you have to come up with a realistic goal, because if you don't come up with a realistic goal, you're always going to be chasing something. So I tell them, I ask them, I was like, hey, how do you want to feel? How do you want to look? And it's like, yeah, you relay it in an attainable way.
Well, I'll ask you, this is real talk.
Yeah.
So, did you have that for yourself personally? Did you catch yourself comparing yourself to somebody that was completely the opposite? And if you did, how did you get yourself out of that? Where like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really big thing that happens with honestly everyone, but I especially see it in young girls. Like they're always comparing themselves to someone, and they're like, "Hey, like this is what I want to look like." It's like media. There's these stick thin models, eating. I don't even know what they're
Yeah.
eating per day. It's like their weekly caloric intake is my daily caloric intake.
Well, did
And
you ever go through that yourself personally? And if you
oh
did,
yeah.
how did you get through that? I'm sure people want to hear
Yeah.
your story. How did you pull yourself out of that?
Absolutely. I mean, man, it started at a young age. So I was a chubby little kid growing up, and again, I was active, but it's just like I didn't understand the importance of nutrition. And then kind of it started when I was 12. Like I stopped eating really. I, had one meal a day, was doing crazy cardio, felt like absolute dog shit, tired all the time. And I was like, hey, like something needs to change. And so, that's kind of when I started like taking those science classes, and I actually took this nutrition class, and it was so cool to me. I was like, oh my gosh, like I see the power of food. Like I don't remember specifically because it was a few years ago. But it's like someone that was eating like just all like processed, like gross food. They changed their diet into whole foods. And again, I don't remember specifically, but I think it was this picture of an artery that was completely clogged. And just by changing their diet, like, it lowered their cholesterol and they became like so much healthier. And, when I saw that, I was like, hey, like, I might be doing something wrong here. It's like you have all these like fast, like readily available foods to us. And, it's sometimes about just being more intentional with what you're eating and, going through my fitness journey. Like I actually had a coach at a point, and, I told him, I was like, I'm just so tired all the time. Like, I'm eating well, but it's just, again, like I thought salads and stuff like that was healthy. And it's like, yeah, it's healthy to an extent, but like how much protein are you eating? And that was the biggest game changer for me. Like, my caloric intake before I started educating myself was maybe like 50 grams of protein per day. Now I have like 40 to 50 grams of protein per meal. And that's a little, I mean, for my goals, that's what I need to do. I know that's a little
Right.
high for some people. But yeah, it's just, like understanding is like, hey, how do I want to feel? And it's like, obviously what I'm doing is not working, so something has to change. And like, it's so sad to see all these women like trying so hard, but they're just like not dialed in, and they're starving themselves and they're feeling like shit. And it's like your body's going to respond to that. It's like if you're only feeding yourself one time a day and you're not getting that nutrition, of course your body's going to store it as fat, because it's like you're freaking starving me here. Like, what's going on?
Well, with that, do you see it as more of an issue for the clientele that you're going for? Is it
Yeah.
they would rather do it easy, quote unquote, by just cutting out a bunch of calories, thinking that's going to solve the problem, and don't want to do the work in the weight room, or they want to get a big transformation that they're working out so hard in the weight room, and oh, by the way, also not eating anything, and therefore sabotaging their own selves goals? Which one do you think is more accurate?
I mean, I've seen them both. That's the thing. I've seen them both. I've seen that person that's, going to the gym 7 days a week on the cardio machine, not eating anything, not understanding why they're not getting fit. And, even me, like I used to be that person. And it wasn't until I started strength training, I started lifting weights. And, that's like something that women especially are kind of scared of.
No, I mean, I've seen that. And I'm sure that's got to be a big challenge for you as a trainer, because you need to get the weights up because you see the bigger goal.
Yeah.
But how do you convince that to some of your female clients? And how do you get over the very typical excuse of, I don't want to get bulky, I don't want to look like Arnold?
Oh my gosh. I tell them, I was like, go ahead and try to get bulky. You won't. You literally won't. Like, it is so hard to obtain that. And I tell them, like, I just take them through my own journey of like doing cardio countlessly for endless hours and not getting me anywhere.
So getting back to that, I was talking to one, and by the time this episode comes out, Dr. Jimmy Bagley. He's a kinesiologist at SF State, specializes in muscle physiology. And he explained something to me that I've been working out consistently since I was 18. Mm-hmm. And there's certain things that you learn from personal trainers and some things you kind of have to figure out on your own. And I never put this together until he explained it to me. He said, a lot of us try to go to the gym, we have 45 minutes in a day and we cram everything in there. It's 20 minutes on the treadmill, 30 minutes on the weights, maybe 15 minutes of stretch. We have some sort of hybrid thing that we put together to say, great, I got my abs, I got my weights, I got my cardio, I should be all good.
Yeah.
The way he explained it to me was, if you go and try to do everything in your one workout, you end up hurting yourself from the goals you probably want. He said, for guys especially, if you want to build up muscle, if you only have 45 minutes and you try to cram in a 20-minute treadmill session thinking, okay, I'm burning more calories, it's going to burn more fat, you're telling your body to pull different resources from different areas. Like if you just go in and focus 45 minutes on weight training, you're going to tell your body, I'm building muscle mode now. I need to utilize energy for that. And then if you want to do cardio later to help burn calories, come back in 6 hours. Now you're switching your body to, I need to burn energy fast mode. So if you try to put them all together at the same time, you end up just kind of fighting yourself.
Absolutely.
It was kind of one thing that I started thinking about years ago. Like that's exactly why I probably never saw a lot of results. I'm here in the gym hitting the weights, but then I'm also doing a bunch of cardio. Mm-hmm. And we get so caught up on the treadmill thinking you're going to lose all this weight. And really, it can work. It has a place. But if you overexhausted, you end up hurting yourself and not even realizing it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like, again, I see that a lot. And it's like, people relate calories to like, oh, I want to work out to burn as many calories as I can. And that's not all it comes down to. It's like, yeah, you may burn more calories on that treadmill, but strength training builds muscle. And so the whole idea of just like wanting to lose fat, it's like, no, like, yes, you want to lose fat, but you also want to get that muscle mass up because, it comes down to the idea of your resting metabolic rate. And when you have more muscle on you, you're able to eat more calories and burn more calories at rest. And that is like the biggest thing that people don't understand. And I'm like, hey, it's a process building muscle. It's not going to happen overnight. But, that was the biggest thing, especially in my fitness journey. Once I started lifting weights, I saw results like that. And like, yeah, I might have been the same weight, but I'm like, wow, I look so much better. I have more muscle definition. My clothes are fitting better. And, that's the biggest thing. It's like people like chase that number after a scale. And it's like your body composition has a much bigger play within that,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like where fitness like almost becomes a little bit obsessive. It's like someone weighs themselves every single day. And, that can be discouraging because within a week, my weight's going to go up. It's going to go down. It's not going to stay consistent, and especially women, like our hormones fluctuate. And, like that's a big problem that I was seeing within my clients is they were weighing themselves every day and then they were getting really down on themselves. And I was like,
yeah. So here's one thing. What would you say is the biggest excuse? We'll call it an excuse. Reason why people within the clientele group that you go over specifically, why they don't continue on the program? Is it a lack of results? Is it a lack of time? Is it money? What is it that you're seeing the biggest reason why? That they're
Yeah.
telling you at least. And then what do you think it is really?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's two of those things. It's time and money. And, I like to tell them, I'm like, yourself is the best investment you can ever make. It's like if you don't put time into yourself now, you're going to see the repercussions later, and you're going to have to like actually take time away from what you're doing to take care of yourself.
So if it's time, where do you think that time is coming from? Do people live far away from the gym? Do people, I mean, are women, do they have kids? Where is that time that they say that they don't have? What is it being devoted to, if they have been honest with you where it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it is it's not that they don't have time, it's that they don't make time, and that's the big thing. It's like your workout doesn't have to be 2 hours a day. You can do something 30 minutes, 15 minutes. Something is better than nothing. And that's what I love to tell my clients. I'm like, okay, if you don't have 2 hours, wake up a little bit earlier. Go on a 15-minute walk. Do a 15-minute circuit in your living room. Like, there are so many excuses that I hear day to day, but it's like at the end of the day, it's like you gotta want it. And what I start telling my clients, like starting off, is like, treat your workout like a doctor's appointment. Treat it like a non-negotiable part of your day and stick to it. Be consistent with it. And it's like, once you do that for about 2 weeks, your body's actually going to start craving like moving at that time. And it's, you're going to start being like, oh man, I kind of want to move right now.
Let's focus on the online part of it. So you have a consultation with your client first, correct?
Yeah.
And then from then on, do you just make workout videos for them specifically? Do you give them a program and then you check on them? How does that whole thing work?
Yeah, I know. Online training is definitely a little bit different. So we actually have everything through an app. So let's say you're the client, you go in for the day, you see your macros and you start tracking your food. So then me as a coach, I know what you're eating and I know how to make those small adjustments and changes to your diet. The next thing you have is a workout plan. So you can see your workout plan up to a week in advance, right? And so within that workout plan, there'll be videos of exactly how to do it, how long to do it. We have timers, we have the set range, we have the rep range, and you can actually go in and like see what weight you're using. So like, let's say last week I was using a 20-pound weight. I was like, oh, that's kind of easy. Let me go up to a 30-pound weight. It's like me as a coach, I'm able to see all of that progress.
So that's based upon them telling you, I lifted 30 pounds.
Yeah.
That's based on them being honest about their macros. People lie about that. I didn't eat that cookie and then it didn't count. And then at the end of the day, when they don't get the results that they think they're supposed to get, and it's, well, were we really being honest about those macros? Were we really being honest about how many sets you did in the gym? Is that a challenge that you see?
Oh, absolutely. And that's where I tell them, I'm like, you have to be utterly honest with me. I want to see the good, the bad, and the ugly, because if you don't show me that, I'm not going to be able to help you to my full ability. And our whole philosophy is meeting people where they're at and getting them to where they want to be. So it's like, I realize they're not going to be perfect. I'm not even perfect on my macros every day, And again, it's like, I see oftentimes people literally try to be perfect, and I'm like, that's not sustainable. And so it's about making those small adjustments over time, like I said, that's going to get them to their results. It's going to get them to their goals. And like, yeah, sometimes it is tough love, but it's like, again, how bad do you want this and how much of my help do you want?
So what's the typical time frame that people stick around before they say, I'm seeing the results or I'm not seeing the results? Is it 2 weeks, a month?
Yeah, I mean, so our program is a 16-week program because before that, it's like very hard to see results. Again, it's like the idea of people like wanting results like that. And, some people do see it within 2 weeks. If they're not doing anything and they start eating healthy and they start going on walks, yeah, they're going to shed those pounds. But again, that's such a tough question because it is different for everyone. But I'd say about the 16-week mark, you know, if what you're doing is working for you, if it's not.
Gotcha. And then where are most of your clients coming from? Is there a specific state, country? What do you got?
Yeah. So the big thing with online training is it's something that I had to get used to. Most of them come from social media. So I had to learn how to have a social media presence. And before this, I was not someone that was on Instagram. I was not someone that was on Facebook. I'd literally leave my phone in the house all day, you know? And so again, it's like I learned the power of social media and how many people I could help with that. So, it's like I took this business course and learned like how to use it as a tool. And so it's like putting out content and attracting the people that you want to attract. And it's definitely like a learning experience. I was like, I'm still learning. I'm still learning like what attracts my client and what doesn't. And, it's something that I am struggling with is like I have a big male audience right now. And it's like I'm trying to switch that into a female clientele.
Well, let's talk about that. We talked about that a lot earlier before the cameras came on, and you're getting a lot of attention, and it may not necessarily be from the clientele that you were hoping to aim for.
Yeah.
Now, how do you how do you get through that, and how do you establish, hey, you hired me to help you get a specific body image or weightlifting goal, whatever it is. This is where it is. And we all know that, as we talked about earlier, a lot of your male clients come to you and they're not asking for help on how to curl. They're asking for 7 digits.
Yeah.
So how do you separate that, and how do you implement your own professionalism into the whole thing?
Absolutely. I think it really came down to a decision. I was like, who do I want to train? And I realized I was like, you know what? I don't want to train male clients. I don't want to have to deal with that. And like, it's like I knew for myself I'd be able to help female clients better because it's like I am one of them. I've gone through a lot of the struggles that they've gone through.
And so how do you fight that? Like, how do you stop people from, and the reason why I'm asking is because I don't think you're alone in this. I think a lot of female trainers probably have the same challenge that you had there. It's, I want to be known for the work that I'm putting in, but then I don't want to be rude to somebody, or I don't want to come off the wrong way. So what is it like, if you can give some people some tips on how you communicate that intention to everybody else so everybody knows we're on the same page?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I do is I say that I only train female clients. And one thing that I've started doing on my social media platform is I've talked about woman problems. I've talked about periods. And usually that kind of makes guys stray away a little bit.
Yeah, I can understand that. Well, this has been an exciting conversation, Leah. I learned a lot about the online coaching industry and how it's definitely suiting to what your overall goals are. And it's great to see that you started something in college in terms of being a hygienist, which is a great career, but you had the courage to say, this isn't what I want to do anymore. I want to do something to help people in a different way. Thought it was this, it's not that, but now I want to try something else. And you're making the life choices that you need to make in order to make that happen, as opposed to rely on somebody else to pay your way through. Like, no, I'm going to take care of myself and do what I got to do. And you seem like you have the right mindset to help out women within the same age group, because you've been through it. You've seen the challenges, you know what they're going through. You can relate to a level that maybe somebody who has more followers or a bigger clout or has a different body style can't relate to, because that wasn't the same journey that they went through. So it's exciting stuff, and I definitely wish you all the best. So how can people get a hold of you, and where can they find this app?
Yeah, absolutely. So my best form of communication is Instagram. So I'll just give you my @ It's Leah Krzywicki, so LeahKrzy. And from there, you can DM me, and any questions you have, I'm always open to help as many people as I can help. Like, that is what I want to do. That's what makes me feel good. And it's like, again, it's like I understand navigating the world is so hard, but so I just want to be here to help you.
Great. And now some people are going to say, all right, that sounds great. Tell me the numbers. What does a coaching program look like for you? What are their options that they have?
Yeah. So again, everyone is a little bit different. And right now I am only doing online coaching because that's just, where this industry is going and what makes the most sense for me. So I would tell them, like, get on a phone call with me and we can assess your options, because it's different for everyone.
Great. And I'm looking forward to seeing great things from you. And obviously I know Coach Paul, he's been in here in the past. He's doing great things with the whole overall program. So nothing but great things. So Thank you, Leah, for coming out. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. If you like the episode, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share with anybody that you feel can gain a lot of insight from it. And if you're listening to this episode on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave me a comment and share the episode with anybody that you feel can enjoy it. That's how the channel grows. And the best way to support my channel is just to simply watch the episode on YouTube. Because by you watching the episode on YouTube, the algorithm tells it that people are engaged with it. They're listening for almost 2 hours for a great conversation, and it helps the platform promote the video to other people in different audiences. So thank you, everybody, for supporting the channel. And Leah, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you so much, Mike, for having me here. It was fun today.
Great. Have a good one, everybody.